Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Talking Crazy 88, back again with another podcast for you. Wanted to repost this old episode of the Phil Donahue show. That was that aired almost 20 something years ago when I was in high school, and this was during the time during Rodney King was beaten by four punk ass Los Angeles police officers who really wanted to kill this man, but ended up just beating him to the inch of his life. Terrorized two other black motorists that was accompanying Rodney King that fateful night, and eventually these officers lost their job, besmirched the reputation of the Los Angeles Police Department, and became losers in life, which is typically what happens when you become a police officer. You're automatically, you're already a loser in life, so hey, why not just join the police department? And if you're a white loser, well, you got power over black folks now. Just about a couple of months ago, we was talking about Darren Wilson, who did his first interview, and something poignant about that interview that he said that he didn't really like patrolling in white neighborhoods, but he enjoyed patrolling in black neighborhoods because he saw black folks as being entertaining. Well, interesting. And I can only infer that white people see black folks as a source of entertainment, especially when they come into our neighborhood and patrol and arrest and ticket and fine and whatever, and abuse their power to abuse black folks in the community where they live and that they serve, which they don't even live in that community where they serve. So it's kind of interesting to me that, this is the way, but this is white supremacy. It shouldn't surprise anybody. That certainly doesn't surprise me. In any event, I want you to go ahead and take a look at this. Take a look at this episode, and you'll notice that the more things change, the more things stay the same. Well, I'm going to end this commentary right now and let you enjoy the show. And I'll be back later on with another podcast and probably do a podcast following up this episode. And I guess I'll talk to you guys later. This is Talking Crazy 88, and I am out here. And black folks, let's be careful out there, alright?
Spread abuse that is condoned, in fact, supported by the authorities throughout Southern California, and we believe throughout the country.
Appearing to confirm your point, Mr. Burton, sir. Don Jackson, remember him? He got thrown through a plate glass window in Long Beach. He invites an NBC cameraman to come with him. He's a cop in another community in Southern California. He tells an NBC cameraman, hey, these cops are beating up black people. Bring your camera, I'll show you what I mean. The guy does. Sure enough, he's pulled over. Watch this. Here's the man, Don Jackson, being arrested in Long Beach, California on January 14th, 1989. This is 2 years ago. Watch this.
Listen, I got the right to bat you down, and I'm going to f***ing do that.
Yeah?
I don't know if you got a knife or weapon on you.
You can pat me down, but don't mess with
Turn
me,
around
man.
and put your f***ing hands on your head now.
Why?
Do it now, because I'm f***ing telling you to.
What are you going to do?
Put your f***ing hands on your head!
You going to hit me with that stick?
Yeah, I just might.
For what?
Put your hands on your head.
For what?
I don't know if you got a f***ing knife!
I don't have a knife.
Put your hands on your head. Turn around! Ow!
I bet you're not a cop anymore, Mr. Jackson.
No, I'm not. I'm at Penn State Graduate School right now.
Boy, they must hate your guts in Hawthorne, place where you used to work.
Well,
You blew the whistle on them. You embarrassed the blue.
in fact, they put my picture up with bullseyes drawn over it, arrows going through my head. I got death threats for 2 years. I've been followed. My own department initiated charges against me as a dope dealer and a heroin salesman. And ultimately, they retired me, sending me to a doctor claiming that I was hypersensitive to racism.
What happened to the two officers involved in the incident, Mr. Jackson?
Literally nothing. Both officers were given full disability retirements, and no disciplinary action was taken against them. They're presently in trial, however, because the district attorney's office filed criminal charges against both officers for assault and falsifying a police report.
We should say, just to skip around just a little bit, here are, let us see, here's crosstalk on the police radio the night that Rodney King was beat up. One sergeant said, not ready, all right, we'll show that when it is. Do we have any idea when it might be? All right. They use the phrase, gorillas in the mist. You hear that? Did you see that? Is that racist? And if you look at the police as they're beating up Mr. King, there's a kind of a, and they back up. It's like a fear here. There's a fear. You can see it. Remember when you were a kid and you got in a fight, you hit a guy and then you backed up like this? I don't know. I'm not a sociologist. But is this about this? You're nodding with affirmation.
It's about death. The guys thought they were going to kill him. They were screaming.
I'm talking about the cops.
That's
I'm
right.
saying the cops are afraid of this big black guy.
Yeah, they weren't afraid of him. They were pumped up on adrenaline. They were going to kill him. They were screaming, "Kill a nigger."
No.
There's no way they could have been afraid of him. He's on the ground hurt. They're beating the mess out of him, and they're going to hit him and back off. They're stepping off so the other person can come in and take their own turn. That's all it is. That's it. You hit him and you move out, and another one steps in. It goes on all the time. It's nothing new, and it's not new here either.
And Phil, this kind of excuse is what frequently comes up from police officers.
I'm not offering it as an excuse. If we don't understand this behavior, we're never going to fix it.
Well,
and I'm merely trying to suggest, not impose my view, that racism is two things. It's ignorance and fear.
but fear doesn't excuse that kind of a beating. And in most of these
I'm
cases,
not excusing it.
most of these cases where people are beaten like this, the cops are not under attack. It's not someone fighting back.
Okay.
I think they knew what they wanted to do once they pulled us over. I think they seen three black guys in the car, and they say, okay, we can just pull them over and beat the mess out of them because it's so late. It's dark. It's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. What are we doing? You know, we just mind our own business. So they knew what they wanted to do.
They did not hear the word nigger. Do you come to testify to otherwise, Mr. Lerner?
I heard the audio-enhanced version of the tape, and what they're not just saying nigger, is they're saying killer, nigger. And this is a chant. It's like a gangbang chant that these people in Los Angeles that are in some of these gangs chant when they're about to do violence to one of their own people. And the cops know this. They're involved with juvenile gangs. And when they say killer, nigger, and then the others started to say it, and how you feel now, nigger? I've heard that on the audio tape. Mr. King has sworn, and he's told me that. He's very afraid that they're going to come back and kill him, but I'm going to tell you that's just what they said. And as they started chanting it, he knew that he was going to die.
Are you going to be able to produce a neurologist to say that your client is brain damaged?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You really are?
Absolutely.
And you see the personality change,
I see the personality change.
Are you there, caller? Hi.
Yes, Phil, I'm a New York City police officer, and I just want to
Incidentally, may I say, officer, whoever you are, we couldn't get... the New York City Police Department had no interest in this program whatsoever.
Well, Phil, I work in the precinct where your building is right now, and you could have put out the word and got cops there, I'm sure. But I'll tell you that my only feeling about this is that what's going to happen is that police officers are going to pull back from what we do, and what we do for a living is on the edge, without a doubt.
And come on. If you're... you know... You whine more than any other people I've ever heard in my life. If you don't want to do this work, then get out of the uniform. You're on the edge. I risk my life. We know you risk your life. We know that it can be tough. But, you know, it's like, what do you want us to do? What kind of country do you want?
No,
Come
Phil,
on.
I want to see people like, especially like these L.A. officers, prosecuted. I see no problem with a vigorous prosecution of these guys. These guys definitely went above and beyond what is called for in any situation.
Yeah.
But I see a great feeling, especially on the streets since this happened, that you can't even grab someone who has a gun or has a knife or is dealing drugs without people gathering around and yelling and criticizing. What are you doing? What are we doing? We're there trying to protect you people.
That's my question.
Yeah, ask him.
What about the New York cops that beat the Latino and killed him in the car? Do you want him prosecuted as well, the four of them? I saw a rally.
There are 5, and we don't have a read on this yet.
Well,
the man is all right.
They're rallying
you
in their
want to
behalf.
try.
They're rallying in their behalf, just as they are in Los Angeles for Chief Gates.
Yeah.
There's a great deal of support in the police community for these kinds of beatings.
Right. Are you? May I ask your rank?
Yes, I'm a police officer on the street, Phil.
Officer. Okay. You can see your TV, right?
Yes, I can.
All right. Here's the transcript from the radio tape of the LAPD prior to this beating. One sergeant said, "You just had a big-time use of force." What does taste mean? Taste and beat the suspect. Taste, as in the taser gun, yes. And beat the suspect of California Highway Patrol pursuit big time. All right, next. Oh, well, I'm sure the lizard didn't deserve it. Ha, ha, I'll let them know, okay? So this is a little bit of inside baseball. Lizard, what do you think? Next. I haven't beaten anyone this bad in a long time, said the Foul Wind Unit. These are two of the guys who are probably going to lose their job if we are to believe a piece in the Washington Post this morning. We should also say that they have an opportunity for a hearing. Oh, not again. Why for you do that? I thought you agreed to chill out for a while. Why for you do that? Is that black talk by a white guy?
Yes.
Next slide. Sounds almost exciting as our last call. It was right out of Gorillas in the Mist. Gorillas. That is racist.
You know, Phil, I would add that they are not talking to each other verbally. They are typing these messages into an onboard computer. That's how deliberate this choice of words is.
Yeah. You still there, officer?
I am.
You'll agree you don't want your name attached to any of this commentary.
No, I live in this city. I have I have family who walk around in the city. I don't want anything like this happening here in New York. That's for sure.
All right. Stay with me, will you, officer? I want you involved here. Since we were unable to get a New York police people on our program today, we went to Jackson, Mississippi. Where would you go? Here are Sergeant Michael Dill and Officer Victor Mason. Would you kindly stand, gentlemen? From the 300-plus uniformed police contingent of Jackson, Mississippi. They are going to arrest me. Huh? Well, you know, there is a way to do this. There is a way to do this. Am I lying to him, officer? I mean, I assume there's a book on how to arrest people, right? Officer?
Yes. Phil, may I say something?
Yeah.
This whole thing that your show is about, I served with an officer who was killed in the line of duty in New York in 1989. I was present at the scene at the time of his death and at the arrest of one of the perpetrators who was apprehended at the scene.
Yeah.
He was not beaten. He was handcuffed. He was brought into court. The other 3 perpetrators were arrested that day.
Yeah.
None of them were beaten, and they were brought into court.
Listen.
Phil, let me finish. Of 3 of the perpetrators who were arrested later on all made allegations that they were beaten. They were pictures taken, medical examinations made.
It's an hour-long show. Let's go.
The juries didn't believe them. But I would be afraid that if that crime happened now, and these people went in to tell these juries this story now, that they would be acquitted. That people who were robbing people, holding hostages of civilians, and then when the police came, killed
well, if that's what you think,
I think that this
let me just say this. Let me say this to you. If you believe that the people you arrest are going to be acquitted by a wimpy judicial system and a terrified political structure, then you are going to beat the hell out of the next people you arrest.
No, not me personally, and I think most officers are maintain their professionalism. And I think that if the police, as by and large, were losing it on the street, things would be a lot worse than they are now. I agree that what happened out in L.A. and what happens from time to time is bad.
All right.
But
Just
by
hang.
and large,
All
we're
right,
doing
hang
a
on a
tough
minute.
job and doing a
I got
good job.
200 people in this audience want to get in, but I want you to see this. Can I borrow your chair? Just a second here. Just hold this. Pretend I'm driving. All right? Left side of the car. I'm driving. You stop me. Okay. All right, here's my first question. Do you mind if I get out of the car?
No, in fact,
It's a speeding ticket.
I'd prefer you did.
You agree with this, Officer New York?
No, I don't.
You want him to stay in the car where you can see him?
Yes, I do.
I want him out of the car where I can see him.
Well, here's the problem. Now, when you come up, I assume you're going to stay behind me. Is that right?
Correct.
Where will your partner be?
Easing up on your right side.
Over here.
Correct.
All right. So if I open the door, one of the points that this officer from New York wants to make, and every other police officer, you don't know whether you're going to get a driver's license or a .357 Magnum, right?
Correct.
Okay. The citizenry has to understand that. We have to understand that if we're going to understand your problem. Right. But we also have to expect a certain amount of disciplined behavior on your part as well, or else there goes the whole neighborhood. Otherwise, all this talk about America and stuff is meaningless. Okay, you want me to stay in? You want me to come out? He wants you to stay in. So there's no universal rule on this.
It's pretty well up to the individual officer. I think most of your handbooks prefer that you keep the driver in the vehicle. Personal choice on my part.
Okay. All right, so the officer from New York is probably offering the standard procedure on this. Okay, I understand that. Now, what about an arrest? What determines whether you use handcuffs?
It's policy of the Jackson Police Department to handcuff everyone that's arrested.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Eudora Weldy?
I can't imagine Ms. Welty being arrested. But
Well, but you never know. She might. You would handcuff a 75-year-old woman? But the rules change, so we're getting a little muddy here. So all right, but that's all right. We'll give him that. I understand.
If something happened to her in my custody, though, and she wasn't, then it would be my...
So you're CYA. Cover
Correct.
your...
derriere.
All right. So tell me then, how would you approach me in terms of the handcuff? Is there a certain procedure? As the Rodney King witnesses look on, I'd like you to arrest me.
Well, of course, there's not a whole lot of room here like there would be on the side of the road. But the approach would be for one of the officers to keep you busy. Keep you in contact with me. Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole time we're taking a step with about every other sentence.
Yeah.
And due to lack of space, we can't affect it real well here.
Right.
But Victor'd be headed a little bit around this way. Now,
go ahead,
we, at this point, would already know you're going to jail. We would have already decided that.
You would have?
Through communication and the charge for whatever reason we stopped.
All right. Okay.
Now,
I'm being totally cooperative. I'm calling you sir.
Yeah, you're doing one, and I would be calling you sir.
All right. So what do you want me to do with my hands?
Where I can see them, sir.
All right.
Where I can see them.
Yes.
Now, let me understand. Let me make something
he's
perfectly
behind me
clear to you.
Yes.
You're under arrest. You are going to have to go with us. Now, I'm back out of reach. Okay.
Yeah.
In case you decide to take the first swing.
Okay.
I'm out of reach.
Right.
I'm going to take your hand. I'm going to get right here.
Yeah.
What's known as a pressure point.
Yeah.
And Victor, at about the same time, is going to take your right hand. Going to put them there together. One of us would have already been to this point. This way it should be. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, how tight you going to be?
Just tight enough to keep you from getting out of them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
All right.
Watch your wrist.
And a white man wearing a suit
Careful.
gets arrested like that, too, Phil.
What?
A white man with a suit gets arrested just like that.
Yeah, and he should. He should.
with the keyholes turned up and gonna put you in the car.
And on the
Right.
same
Now-
note of that, we would double lock them.
Right.
We would double lock the car.
Now here, hold that for me, just officer, if you would.
Okay.
Here's our problem.
Okay.
I can't prove this. I really can't prove this.
Right.
But I'm going to say it. I think we got a whole bunch of black guys getting beat up in the backseat of the cruiser while they're handcuffed.
And I'm sure.
And now, you know, the whole point here is why? How is this happening? And much of this beating is coming from white officers under 30. Young males who were 4 when Martin Luther King got killed, who did not live through the horrible times of the 60s, who have no sense of, boy, this is not fun at all with my hands behind my back like this.
I know it.
Yes. And then you take me into
Precinct or headquarters,
right.
whichever.
Now, what if someone had done what Mr. Jackson done? Mr. Jackson did not put his hand. Maybe we could see that tape just one more time. And then, all right, we're going to break. He did not put his hands up immediately. Did you see that, officer? You know, he told him to put his hands up. What do you do in a situation like that?
You continue to try to get them up there as you're easing up on them. I don't know what led to that situation with Mr. Jackson. I wasn't there, and I don't know that it's fair for me to comment on it because I don't have all the particulars.
That's true, you don't. Incidentally, you have about 340 uniformed personnel in Jackson?
Right, uniform.
And about how many of your officers in Jackson, Mississippi are of color, black or brown or?
I would say out of that number, about 42 are black.
Percent.
Yeah.
Percent.
Black cops only make up 5% of the police in this country, so it's not like we have an overwhelming majority. Most departments in Southern California have had to be forced to hire minorities. Chief Gates now claims that the LAPD is totally integrated. They have 1,000 black officers, and most of them are at the bottom of the police department working patrol and working on the streets.
Right. 40, I don't have a calculator, and if I did, I couldn't work it. I got my hands back here. That's over 10%. That's 12, 13%.
That's one city, though. We're talking about the entire country.
But I'm just wondering if the South hasn't been more progressive in these matters than the North.
Probably
or the
so.
industrial area.
This beating of Rodney King was a lynching, and that was in Southern California. We have our own style of lynching.
Yeah. Are you still there, New York?
I am.
Yeah. Do you want to disagree with anything you've seen so far?
No, I mean, I personally wouldn't, if I knew I was going to be arresting a suspect in a car, I personally, and I'm sure my partner, if he's listening, would feel the same way, I would have another car, 4 officers to the scene, before I would take the person out of the car.
Right.
And I wouldn't confront him face to face. I'd have him have his hands on a fender and go up behind him.
I just want to show you this tape again, New York officer. Take a look at it again. Tell me what you'd have done. Notice that Mr. Jackson does not immediately accommodate the wishes of this officer. So how much time do you give him? Roll this tape.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah? I don't know if you got a knife or weapon on you.
You can pat me down, but don't mess with
Turn
me,
around
man.
and put your hands on your head now.
Why?
Do it now because I'm telling you to.
What are you going to do?
Put your hands on your head.
You going to hit me with that stick?
Yeah, I just might.
For what?
Put your hands on your head.
For what?
I don't know if you got a knife.
I don't have a knife.
Put your hands on your head. Turn around.
There, now. Yeah. Yes, that is Mr. Jackson having his head beat against the car.
For a second, Phil.
I'll give you a chance, so I've got to break. They're upset. We're a little long
Go
here.
ahead.
How long do you give a guy, New York?
Well, that officer was by himself, but I don't know what led up to that officer getting out of the car to confront Mr. Jackson. Honestly, it's hard to judge that.
But if you get yourself into a screaming match with a guy, you know, it's you against the citizen, and if you don't present as the authority here, I mean, I really think I see this problem. How much leniency do you give a citizen who is not responding to your command?
Well, that cop there had to call that situation himself. Sometimes you talk to people calmly, and they do what you say. Sometimes you yell at people, and then they do what you say. Every situation is a different call.
What about this guy lying on the police report? He lied and said that I jumped through the window myself, and then said that I was banging my head into the hood of the car.
The jury is considering all that as we speak.
That's in his report.
The civil suit is underway. And we'll be back. This is no fun at all, I'll tell you what. We'll be back in just a moment. I should say that Bryant Allen and Freddie Helms were passengers in Rodney King's car on the night of the much-reviewed arrest of Rodney King, and this is their first interview on national television. I thank you for presenting yourselves here. We're trying to get to the bottom of this. Are you there, caller? Hi.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, I'm the wife of a police officer, and I just was wondering, do you think that we live in a fantasy world where these criminals just walk over to the police and stick their hands out to be handcuffed? These people just don't let the police officers handcuff them. They fight with them.
Yeah.
They don't know if they have guns on them. They're better armed than the police are.
Yeah.
It would be very nice if they would just give in and stand there and allow themselves to be handcuffed. But they don't do that.
Yeah. When you say they, who do you mean?
I mean, a criminal.
In the King case, the cops became the criminals. That's for sure. They almost murdered that guy.
Let's this kind of police behavior jeopardizes your husband's well-being.
In what way?
The next time someone gets stopped, they're not going to cooperate because they can't trust the police to act according to the law. The fact is that people get stopped all the time for no reason. Police officers plant evidence, beat them. We're not talking about the good cops. This show is about the bad cops, and those are the ones that need to be removed, and they haven't been so.
You know, I just feel like sometimes on our side, like when you're talking about who gets out of the car and what, I get scared when I get pulled over that what's going to happen in that fright. Do I get out of the car? Do I stay in the car? Do I reach for my wallet? I'm afraid, you know, what's going to happen to me? And, you know, we don't know what to do as citizens. What do we do?
They'll smell your fear, and if they're prone toward aggression, you're done for. If you make any gesture that they interpret as a threat, there comes the excessive force.
Yeah.
What was the man in L.A. pulled over for originally? We were trying to figure that out.
They claimed he was speeding, going too fast. And he was also punished and sentenced for contempt of cop.
I'm not going to condone anything that the police, with the police action with Rodney King, they were totally wrong. But there's an old saying that don't judge me unless you can walk in my moccasins. And I walk on both sides of the streets. I'm a professional in my community, and I'm also a reserve police officer in Miami, Florida, and with the Sheriff's Department. And I'd like to say that...
A municipality that has had its own drama.
And in the 12 years that I've been with that department, I've seen an awful lot. And I can only say that I have not seen this type of brutality in Miami.
You're
and
wrong.
I have not...
You're dead wrong.
What about
I have not...
No, the Miami riots were directly because of police brutality.
But the point I'm saying is a lot of people have a lot of fear of the police because of this situation, and most communities, municipalities, have an observer program. And I would suggest that as many of you as possible take advantage of this observer program and sign up down at the headquarters
where you agree to look and make sure that
that's right. And they will not hide anything from you. And I would like to also say
they just had riots in
that the
Miami
attorney
because
with
of
the red
police
tie
violence.
with
What
his
is he talking
statement.
about?
He's not saying that all purity rests in Dade County.
Well, I've walked in his moccasins. I've been a police officer 10 years, and what he's talking about just doesn't hold water. The fact is there are a number of abusive officers that departments know are beating people up and do not correct them. Don't tell people to go down to the police station and join some club. There are many people that can't even go in the police station and file a complaint. What are you talking about?
We're not talking about joining a club or anything of that nature. I'm saying go out and ride with these police on Friday night and Saturday night. This is what I am saying.
Let me ask you to do something. You put on my black skin for 10 minutes and get out on the streets of Los Angeles. Then I'll go to the police station.
I think we have a responsibility. At least understand.
You try that. I've been arrested 4 times for impersonating a black man.
I understand that point also, but I would also say that some of the statements that's been made and especially by the attorney with the red tie, does polarize the situation with some of these statements.
I can speak for myself.
Right.
I can speak for myself.
And I would say
I was born
that
and
the
raised in
police
Miami,
make
Florida,
thousands
sir.
of
I went to
stops
school
every
there.
day in this community, and these are very few and far
Well, I'll tell
between.
you, sir, I was born and raised in the city of Miami, and I'd like to ask you how much time you spent in Liberty City driving around, as opposed to maybe Miami Shores or Coral Gables, where you obviously are from, because you never was living down there.
And we'll be back in just a
I was
moment.
on those mean streets there, fella.
Audience, please send a postcard to Donahue Tickets, care of NBC, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10112. Remember, postcards only, please.
Bryant Allen and Freddie Helms were there the night of this beating of Rodney King, and this is, as they say on the networks, an exclusive interview with you both. I thank you for trusting us to be here. What do you remember? I mean, what are some of the things that you remember? You were ordered from the car, I assume.
Yeah.
Were you asked to put your head down on the car, or how were you?
No, they told me to lay down.
On the ground?
On the ground. And don't turn my head. And then when I did turn my head, they with their hands down, don't move. That's when I started hearing all the crying and the yelling.
Rodney.
Rodney. He steady beating him. He getting beat, whipping. You know, and they told us to move a certain way, like a worm or something. I'm facing a dark field, and they got a gun at my head.
I felt they were trying to kill him myself, the way he was sounding. That's something that I ain't never heard before.
Like what?
It felt like if someone was to hit you in the head with a bat, you would scream, yell, or however you.
Like if you was at a movie or something.
Right, death moans or something like that.
Did you hear the baton strike the body?
I didn't hear none of that. I just heard Rodney screaming.
When he stopped yelling, you could steady hearing, hitting like an echo of his body just being hit.
I thought he sounded like a dog crying in the rain or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like when a dog cold, he moans or whatever. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I felt so bad just hearing him scream, sounding the way he was sounding. You know.
Brian, why don't you tell them what happened after they picked you up off the ground?
All right, when they picked me up from the ground, the lady Highway Patrol had walked me to the car. I was approached with two officers. They tell me, they steady slam me against the car. Do you want to be like your homeboy? Do you want to be like your homeboy?
You want to be like your homeboy?
Yeah.
Homeboy.
Homeboy.
Huh? Friend. That's black English, is it not?
Phil,
Street talk. How would a white cop know this?
Because he's out there doing it.
Phil, other witnesses that were right there says they could hear the cops huffing and puffing like they were taking down a building. Huffing and puffing. You could hear the grunting and groaning as they whacked on his head.
Let me just... Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I am dying. In the paper, they said that he had already been subdued. They had a teeter line around him because they showed on the thing, if you notice, that Rodney King had already been subdued with this teeter line. All right, now he had been subdued, right? Yes. Then he was beaten like this. There was no way that they could justify this if they had already subdued him. It wasn't as though he's standing there able to fight, right?
They weren't trying to beat him, ma'am. They were trying to kill him. That's
but I'm saying is, if they use this as an excuse, right? Yes, this is what I wanted to say. And this is what is the most important thing. He had been incapacitated.
That's right.
All right, then he was beaten as a result of just being black. When Phil demonstrated, what he doesn't realize is, if he was speeding, as they said Rodney King was speeding, it's turned out that he could not have gone at the rate of speed that they said because his car would not go that way high, right? Yes. All right. Now, if Phil had been arrested that night, they would not have treated him that way. They would not have subdued him with a teeter line or beat him. But you take a black driving a car, he did not have to have a record. He did not have to be a threat to the white officer. The mere fact that he was a black.
Yes, ma'am.
Automatically, you view a black as he's a potential threat to your life. This is why,
Yes, ma'am.
no
I
matter
think so,
how these two demonstrated with arresting Phil,
But, ma'am, you know, one
there
thing...
is no consideration to how they would have arrested a black.
You know, one of the problems, though, ma'am, is that we think that there was a black cop that stopped Rodney King just as good as the white cops. Right there when he was already subdued, that black cop put his boot right down on black
There's
cop.
been more than a little testimony from around our country, around the nation, that a black cop can be just as brutal.
And even more fierce.
But I don't think
racism.
I don't think it makes you...
The issue is institutional racism, so it doesn't matter if you change the players. You can put a black police chief in or a black mayor. If you have institutional racism, that dictates the conduct, not the individual.
But, Phil, it's also the situation. What we have here is what's perceived by these cops as a pursuit. And it's common cop talk to know that there's going to be a butt-kicking at the termination of pursuit. And that's what the job of the supervisor is. The sergeant's supposed to get there and keep the cops down, keep the boys salted down so their adrenaline doesn't get pumping and this would happen. And that didn't happen.
And we'll be back in a moment.
Stir us all to demand an end to gratuitous violence and brutality. Law enforcement officials cannot place themselves above the law that they are sworn to defend. What I saw made me sick.
I think the problem based in any relationship where one person is more powerful is that the power is often abused. I also think that today we don't put our money behind the police force. I feel that the policemen should be better educated. I think that they should have more training programs. I think they should be diverse racially.
I also think that the cops, way down deep, believe that the community supports them in this.
I hope
really
that's
do.
not true.
We got, you know, 90% of the people, 85% of the people in California want to execute somebody.
You know, Phil,
We have a very angry nation, and as long as that's the environment, I'm a cop.
I think the cops should wear tape-activated monitors, that when you came over to me and you approached me, a tape would start going, and when everything happens at the end, we could listen to this tape. And I think that would put a lot more people on the ball. But I do think that the cops have a very difficult job, and they should be trained better and better educated, and more often, we need to have older people as cops.
Wives who want that button for their husbands, too.
Everyone has seen this tape, but he also is still like that. Rodney screams every single night. Every night. Screaming. Don't beat me. Please leave me alone.
You mean in his sleep?
In his sleep, every single night. He relives this every single night. Don't forget that. Everyone has seen this tape, but Rodney sees it every single night, all day long.
I just wanted to say that I think the police force is totally wrong, even with the taunting. The police force used deliberate, like, black words, and that, I mean, that went into the person, you know. They must have deliberately did that, and that hurt them more.
That's how he knew that he was going to die, because he
That's
felt
why.
that they could never let him
cruel.
walk away and
I think the
remember
police
that.
force is totally wrong there.
It was an execution.
Yes.
I would like to know what are the so-called black words. There are no black words. Words are words. It's street lingo.
Yes,
okay? It's not
all right.
black English.
Very good. I thank you for the
It's
correction.
perceived by white people to be black lingo, and that's why they use it.
I was just wondering if the cops go through any kind of psychiatric testing before they get hired on the force.
They get initial training when they join the department, but they don't get updated training as they move along in their career, and they ought to.
Yes. Mr. Jackson, I think if Mr. Jackson were not a police officer, if he were not tailed by an NBC crew, he would be just another quote-unquote nigger thrown under the streets. We never would have heard about this, and until we act together as communities, we will not get any further.
I think until we fix this nation, we're never going to get it.
Lots more videotape.
Phil, I think we got 28-year-old officers who've grown up in a white world, surrounded by white people, in white schools, with white everything, and everything black has either been on the post office wall, in the police department, who you're supposed to look for, on the evening news.
Thank you.
The crack houses, the dope dealers, all that's bad is black, and all of a sudden they pull over a car, and out of the car gets a great big tall black dude. The guy is scared. He's scared. Not everybody, not all cops, but a lot of cops, And if I'm scared of you, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to do these things.
Let me tell you something. My father was 63 years old, worked for the sheriff's department 28 years. He was beaten the same way. He was beaten the same way.
So what's the point? That we haven't fixed the problems that have existed?
The point is that it is not safe to be a black man on the streets of this country. And in fact, if Colin Powell was driving on the streets of Los Angeles, he wouldn't be safe.
Neither was Joe Morgan, Jamal Wilkes,
Wesley Snipes.
Lots of very, very famous black people have been roughed up in Southern California. I'll give you a chance to make what I know will be an important point in just a moment.
Thank you.
It was a traffic violation. How come they just couldn't arrest him and give him some kind of fine or something? Why'd they have to beat the mess out of him like that?
Okay, I know that they've gone through an awful lot, and I think it's awful what they've gone through. But do you think the media really perpetuates the black and white issue where it doesn't, where my child says to me, Mummy, why is the black people always in trouble? And I'll say, yes, it seems that way, doesn't it?
It does seem that way.
On the television, in the news. And so that black fear is there because I feel the media perpetuates it.
We do this. We've done this before. If you see the 11 o'clock news, you know, like this, what color am I?
Black.
That's what your child would say.
Yes.
So I don't know. What are you going to do? We got a thing called the First Amendment. Yeah,
I'd like to know how many other officers were there, and when they saw this, didn't they try to stop, or are they used to this?
There's something that you're going to have to understand. There's what's called a code of silence. And in many ways, I have to understand how those officers felt, because although there were approximately 25 officers there, not one of them dared to stop these cops from almost killing this guy, because to have done so, they would have been excommunicated from the police force. No partners to ride with, no one to talk to, and forget about the locker room.
I'd add that the fact there were so many officers there show how deeply institutionalized this conduct is. They did this in front of witnesses. They did this in front of 2 videotape cameras, as it turns out. They weren't the least bit afraid of recriminations, and that's because it comes from the top. When I listen to that tape of George Bush, I think of a hypocrite, because 2 days after the Rodney King beating, he publicly praised Gates as an American hero. And we in L.A. know that Chief Gates has perpetuated racism and fascist violations of basic democratic rights with the full knowledge of city government for the last
Lots of
decade.
people want in out here. Just to make the point, New York City is not without its own police drama. Here's Thompson Square Park. How do you feel about this activity by New York police officers? Clear the park. Clear the park.
Give me a chance. All right. You got me? Yeah, I got it. Okay. All right.
I just want to ask the 2 guys that were in the car, was this, you guys were there, we want your opinion, was this really a racial issue, or was it just police abusing their power?
I think it was both, actually. I think they were using their power, and it was kind of racialist.
Yes.
I have a comment. According to that videotape, I think it's awful that they're beating up people just because they're black or any other color.
We all agree.
I mean,
so what
they're not dogs, they're humans.
That's right. Yes.
The 2 men at the end, why are you coming out now? Why haven't we heard from you before?
Well, since I'm one of their attorneys, I can tell you that it has to do with presenting the lawsuit and presenting the evidence in the most controlled circumstance, which we feel, believe it or not, this is.
Mr. Jackson, how'd you get the police to approach you when you bring the camera to them? How'd you get the police to come up to you?
They didn't know the camera was in the car.
No, not the police, but what'd you do?
Well, what'd you do to attract the police attention? Were you weaving in traffic?
No, what I did was I put myself on the street as a black man, and that was enough. All I did, let me finish. I drove down the street, 35 miles an hour. They pulled us over, and I was thrown through the window. The officer said that we were weaving all over the highway, and they thought we were drunk, and the tape later disputed that claim.
Just let me get this in. This is another item here. I've got to get this in. Kansas is upset with me, and I don't want Kansas upset. I said that Kansas wanted to put Norplant implants in welfare mothers, you know, sterilized, you know. And Senator Eugene Anderson of Kansas reminds me that one member of the Kansas legislature made that proposal, and it did not pass. It was soundly defeated, a fact not mentioned on the air. You're right, Senator. I apologize to you, to the governor, and to the state of Kansas, and we'll be back in just a moment.
$3 to Donahue Transcripts, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 1007, or call 212-227-READ.
It's virgins versus sex enthusiasts.
You have offered us a verbal description of just about every intimate act.
Next, Donahue.
Yeah. Hi, I'm glad you waited. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd like, first of all, to say...
We're almost out of time.
Well, I think a lot of white officers are sick of what we perceive now as reverse racism within the system, as far as they're creating special lists for minority promotions.
Yeah.
You know...
Hang on just Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
Shampoo and conditioner.